and welcome back to the Dreamcast. I am your host, Denise Walsh. I combine science, scripture, and stories that will inspire you to dive deep, break through your own personal glass ceiling, and design a life of your dreams. Are you overworked, overstressed, and overwhelmed? You want life to be different, but you don't even know how to get there. Man, oh man, I lived there myself. And in my experience with working with thousands of people from all walks of life, there is one simple thing that holds so many of us back: a lack of time management. We may know what we want, but we often don't know how to get there and don't feel like we can add one more thing into our already busy day. And that's exactly why I created the Dream Life Action Planner. It's a 90-day inspired game plan that will give you total clarity on your greatest priorities and skyrocket your productivity on the tasks that matter most. And now, for a limited time, you can get your own copy for free. And when you go to denisewalsh.com/action. Denise Walsh, Denisewalsh.com/action, ACTION. Put your information in and we will send this action planner directly to your inbox so you can set your goals, reprioritize your calendar, and design your dream life today. Big welcome back to the Dreamcast. As you guys may or may not remember, one of the core teachings I have is to teach you, right, about the Dream Life Pathway, which is head, heart, feet. Head is all about clarity. Heart is all about emotional passion, life purpose, really emotionally connecting to your goal. And feet is all about action. Our next guest today is going to really hone in on the heart aspect of the Dream Life Pathway. Because here's the deal, my friends. We cannot create when we are emotionally 3 steps behind. And the idea of self-forgiveness, self-love, self-acceptance, self-compassion, and allowing ourselves to heal our heart, creating that wholeness within us, is oftentimes the thing that is holding us back. Our guest uses practices from Byron, Eckhart Tolle, a bunch of people, metaphysical teachers that I don't know how to pronounce their names. But he personally loves and was transformed by the Hawaiian forgiveness teaching of Hupununu. We'll talk about that. And using these practices, he has designed SoulTranSync to inspire more peace, love, forgiveness, and happiness through group workshops and individual coaching clients. His goal is to direct you towards awakening your inner nature and genuine spirit in order to live a more fulfilling life. He also instills that suffering at any variety is completely optional and avoidable if living in the now or present moment. So big Dreamcast welcome to Edward Miller.
Thank you. I really appreciate that introduction. Let me get you straight on one thing. The name of the practice is Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono.
There you go. You just remember the ho.
Ho'oponopono.
There you go. Ho'oponopono.
Awesome. Well, I love everything that you do because I really do feel like this is a step that people miss. They believe that maybe the trauma they experienced when they're 10 is no big deal, or they try to brush over it when really it still is impacting them today if we haven't quite dealt with it. So I want to hear a bit about what SoulTranSync is all about in a minute. Before we get to that, how the heck did you come to this revelation yourself? And how did Ho'oponopono work for you?
Well, I grew up in a home where I was not the favorite because I was not as bright or not as athletic and not as articulate. I was probably kind of a strange child, and my parents didn't quite know what to do with me. That's the way it was. I was kind of introverted, and I was picked on and bullied in the neighborhood. So I think I had a lot of, I don't know, maybe I had self-esteem issues. I know I had a very harsh mother that was always very judgmental and critical, but her intentions were to make me strong and ready for the world. But all I heard was just judgment and criticism, as a child. Well, I grew up, and in order to prove all that wrong as a child, I grew up and became very ambitious, very directed, very much about having the kind of opportunities and careers and businesses that I wanted to share, and was, and was very directed at making that happen. But in the process of it, I was this wounded kid. So I was this very dynamic, determined guy, but inside, I was still that wounded 12-year-old that was feeling not enough, feeling insufficient, feeling inadequate, feeling threatened, all of those things. And I bared that my whole adult life, in my corporate experiences and even in my personal entrepreneurial experiences. I bared the wound of inadequacy in my psyche.
Well, what's really interesting about what you're saying here is that on the outside, you were quote unquote successful. You had careers, you were doing all the things, but yet inside it was driven by this need to prove that
Yes.
you were worth it, that you were enough.
Yes.
When did that come crumbling down?
Well, I came crumbling down like all at once, by the way. In my late 40s and early 50s, which is about 15 years ago, I started getting terrible back pain. I mean, I didn't know what was going on. I got to the point where I could barely walk. I was in and I remember the suffering was, I had to imagine getting from one spot to the next because I had to determine how much pain I would be willing to endure. I was in a lot of pain, yes. And, and I went to the doctor and they told me I have some, they always got something they can find in your back to make you enable. So I let them do surgery on me, and I left surgery worse than I started. So that was a real big moment for me, because I had to realize that, I was going to either live very small, very in a lot of suffering, or I had to find a new way to look at this life that I was left with, because I could barely walk. My wife used to push me around in a wheelchair. And, I was a strong guy that was athletic and was doing my thing. And now I'm a guy that's, in my early 50s and I'm being pushed around in a wheelchair. So that was a big moment. And it got me to start being more introspective than interested in the world. The world is always what it is, but the real mysteries, the real opportunities to learn and to evolve and to heal are all within your heart. So that's when I started exploring different healing strategies, different healing practices that can give me an opportunity to move out of the really resistance and the real hard space that I was in at that time.
Okay, couple questions about your back. Are you still in back pain and in a wheelchair?
Oh, I'm not.
Okay.
Is my back perfect? No, but I know what the pain means now.
I was going to say, because you tried conventional medicine.
Oh, yeah, everything.
All the way, I'm sure, pain medications and things like that, all the way up to surgery. And when that didn't work, you had to say, what else is out there? So what did you come to learn the back pain meant?
Well, I came to learn that back pain was my resistance. Whatever I was holding on to in my life, whatever I was still bearing in my thinking, whatever I was still suffering, the small stories of inadequacy I was still suffering with were all contained in my lower back. And what was really interesting about it is that whenever I went into a stressful situation, my back would hurt worse. So I knew that this was all about thinking. It wasn't about my back. My back was my back, but my thinking was making me physically contracted.
Well, how did you figure that out?
Well, I've always been a meditator. I've been meditating since I was about 19 years old. I studied Transcendental meditation. So I've been generally...
Can you describe
Transcendental is a meditation that came into vogue about 25, 30 years ago in the United States and was brought in from the East. And it's a practice which gives you a mantra. So you're given a mantra after your training, and you use that mantra the rest of your life. And the mantra is a mantra that entrains your brain or charms your brain into presence, or into the space, as I call it, or into theta. Different names for the space that we're talking about. But that's what Transcendental does. And Transcendental just was a practice that you do twice a day, but you do it using this mantra that they give you.
So then the mantra retrains your brain to kind of immediately get into this calm zone.
Yes, your body, your mind uses the mantra to charm yourself into presence.
Got it. Okay, keep going. So you were doing the meditation, you were introspecting.
And I realized that I couldn't have any more medicine. There was no more procedures I was willing to take. And if I was going to change my life, if I was going to live again, I had to look inside and see what the story was I was holding on to. And one day my wife and I were having a discussion, and she said, this healing that you have is not in your body at all. it's in your mind. And I was like, what the hell is she talking about? That was a lot of nerve, but it was true. And it was the impetus. And this is about 15, 20 years ago. It was the impetus for me really going inside and really exploring what I'm still bearing. And as I said before, much of it was that childhood trauma that I was still holding on to, of inadequacy. And I had to unravel that. And let me promise you, unraveling the childhood wound of inadequacy is a process. It's not a moment. It's not a great awareness that you have, but it is something that you have to be very vigilant and put your attention on constantly. So
when you're in physical pain,
yes,
it is even more difficult to think positive and change your thoughts and that kind of thing. And so I can imagine being in such physical pain that you need a wheelchair, to have somebody say it's all in your mind, essentially, was a kind of a slap in the face. But at the end of the day, she was right. So take us through the process of that unraveling.
Well, the unraveling came to, honestly, it started with this practice I teach called Ho'oponopono. I want to get right into that.
Totally. I want to hear about this.
I didn't know that I was holding on to these stories. Ho'oponopono taught me that all of the stories memories that I'm still bearing, I have to clean. I have to let go of. I have to release. And I do it in love. So Ho'oponopono is a mantra and a philosophy. But the mantra is, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. I'll say it again. The mantra is, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. That mantra is a mantra that's not said to anything in the world. It's a relationship with yourself. It's the awareness that you bear thought and you fall into belief that often are not loving or in your best interest. And when you can relate to yourself in a new way and profess love to yourself with I love you, please forgive me for hanging on to thoughts and stories and beliefs that are clearly not loving or in my best interest. Thank you for that awareness. Thank you for the awareness that I am the divine, that it's impossible for me to be anything but that. And those are the things that you can use with the Ho'oponopono practice, because the practice is about there is nobody else. There's only you. And once you become aware that everybody else is just a reflection of your perceiving mind, then you have to take responsibility for everything you see and experience. You no longer can blame anything for anything that you experience in your life, because you're the perceiver. You have the most power of all. You have the power to decide what things are and how you're going to relate to them. And when you relate to them in a loving way, in a accepting way, in a compassionate way, it opens your heart up. You start to see yourself differently, but most important, the world transfix also. People, relationships open up. It's just such a powerful practice.
Did you ever see the movie with Elton John?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So my psychologist nature came out in big time in that movie at the end.
Oh, I bet it did.
Where his little boy self comes into the room.
Yes.
And older Elton John gives him a great big hug.
I love that.
Oh, and it sounds like you're speaking to your younger self in this way. You're speaking to your soul, and you're forgiving, accepting, and integrating it all into the here and now.
Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about that, about this inner child work. Ho'oponopono is a beautiful tool for inner child work. And, I sell a meditation that is a great tool for making first contact with that innocent child and developing an intimate relationship with that innocent child and start a new dialogue with that innocent child. Let that child feel as though he's accepted and loved and nurtured and adored. I mean, it's just about a whole new relationship with that inner. And once you establish and make contact with your innocence, you feel braver. You feel more capable. You don't feel so fractured in your thinking. You feel more determined and more self-assured. Yeah. So I'm really a believer. On my phone, I just turned my phone off, but on my phone, I put as my screensaver a childhood picture of myself. Oh. And I spend a lot of time communing with that. And I recommend that to all my clients, to find a childhood picture of you and put it on your phone and start to develop a new relationship with it. Start to love on that child. Because it's interesting, because time is just an imagined thing anyway. When you can reconnect with that innocent part of you, think of the healing that you can create.
That's beautiful. It really is. And I think sometimes we don't know what we're missing until we have it back.
Yes.
And when you feel whole, it really does impact your inner strength and the way you view the world. So what did you notice once you started healing your inner child? How did that change you?
What a good question. What I really started noticing is started paying more attention to my thinking mind. And when thoughts come up that are not loving, not supportive, and not in my best interest, I get a chance to see them without jumping on them and clinging to them with a story, without trying to make them something to believe, but just being aware of them. Because the mind is always going to come up with crap. None of it needs to be invested in. And once you start to have that new relationship with yourself, you realize that your mind is this space of objects coming in and out. And as long as you are aware of them and don't turn them into anything that's personal or anything you have to do anything about or anything you have to fix or understand, and just let those thoughts move, you all of a sudden you feel lighter. You feel less burdened with responsibility, with obligation, with all the things that bear on us every day. Even concept of loyalty. Sometimes loyalty is a burden for us. And if we are being kinder to ourselves and more loving and compassionate to ourselves, sometimes we don't need to be loyal. We need to be aware.
Did you start experiencing relief in your back?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? It's very interesting. Because the mind is so interesting, once I stopped putting the attention on the resistance and see the love and see the acceptance, my back opened up. And by the way, techniques came to how to strengthen my back. I stopped making my back a problem. And I started looking for the opportunities in making my whole body strong, making my whole core a corset that supports my whole being.
Right.
And once that started happening, my flexibility got better, my walking. I used to be very careful about how far I'd be thinking about how far I have to walk. I can walk forever now. And by the way, but when my back does contract, I'm okay with that. I'm not making it a problem. I'm not saying I want it to go away. I'm not trying to resist it. I'm just aware of it now.
Well, it's powerful. You become what you think about, right? And so if you think about the problem of your back and how to make it gone and and you think when this is better, then I'll feel happy, all of these things.
Yeah. Well, what do I need to do to make it better? There's always something we need to do.
Right.
And sometimes we need to just be aware and not do anything.
And the more you healed yourself from the inside out, the less the back was a problem. And it sounds like you've done a few things. Number one, you became aware that you had an inner child. Step one, you became aware of what that inner child was, how it was feeling, the wounded inner child, meaning It felt inadequate and that kind of thing. And then you spoke to it to heal it, which may sound silly to somebody who's never done it, but I can tell you it's such a powerful experience. Not only did it impact you physically, but then it impacted you and the world around you. My guess is you weren't doing this type of work before you experienced it. Is that right?
No, this is all introspection. This is all internal work. This is actually the best work in the world because we are so busy trying to fix problems in the world. The real things that need to be explored are what our heart's bearing, what we're believing, because that offers us the freedom of opportunity, of connecting in new ways with people, with the world, and being more enthusiastic about ourselves and the world because we're no longer in fear. We're no longer contracted in our hearts.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions my clients ask me. You can help talk to the audience and I can hear them say, all right, here are the questions that I get when in regards to building a business or making more money or trying to make life better. They often will come to me and say, nothing is working. It's too slow. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what to do right because I must be doing something wrong. And I'd love to hear how you may coach someone or questions you would ask or exercises you might have them do to take them out of this, I'm wrong, something's wrong, it's not good enough kind of attitude or philosophy.
Well, what's interesting is that I believe all beliefs can't be true. All of them. There aren't some beliefs that are true and some beliefs that are not true. No belief is worth investing in. They're just not. So what happens is that a lot of people get caught up in all the thoughts in their mind, like, I'm not successful. That's not true. You don't know that for sure. So allow yourself to be aware that you're believing something that's just in your mind, just a thought. And because you're believing it, and much of the stuff we believe is very negative and very condescending to ourselves. How do I figure this out? How am I going to be successful? I mean, all of these beliefs are beliefs about our inadequacies. And you've got to start at some place, start challenging all those inadequacies in the truth of yourself. Start challenging those inadequacies in the truth of who you are. And once you start slowly changing the trajectory of your interest in the problematic world into healing your own heart, everything opens up. And you no longer believe or are so quick to believe the stories that your mind is telling you that are important.
You know, it's kind of funny, as I often say, I can give 10 people the same script, of what to do. And they're all going to have different results based on who they are when they send it. And so you might even be doing the same work 3 months from now, but you're going to have different results based on the internal changes and shifts you've experienced. Did you feel like that too?
Yes. Well, let me tell you about this time we're in right now. It's really important that we talk about this energy that we're in right now. There's a lot going on in the world right now. Yeah. And people who are sensitive feel it. Yeah. And we have to be very careful that in these energies, our mind has a tendency to find stories to tell ourselves about things being wrong, things being hard, things being difficult, things being impossible, all those stories that the mind comes up with. During this period that we're in, we need to be aware that we need to give ourselves a little bit of break. We need to give ourselves a little more compassion right now and realize that things are intense. And, our mind is going to come up with these thoughts of inadequacy or fear. And let ourselves be aware of that. That's what's kind of going on right now, and not take them on as beliefs. Look at them just as I was talking about as thoughts. And when they're caught up and when your mind is overextended with beliefs, then give yourself a break. Find ways in order to ground yourself again. I'm a real meditator. I believe in meditation, but it may not be for everyone. So I'm a believer in telling people to find ways to get back into your body. Take a walk, take a swim, ride your bike, knit, do a painting. Get yourself out of your thinking mind, slow your thinking mind down and get back into your body, especially right now during this really very emotional, high energy time.
High emotion, yeah. High energy.
Practices that can bring you back solidly back into yourself.
And so grounding yourself really takes you from this monkey mind. And when I have clients coming to me, they're saying they're in monkey mind, right? They're in this fear-based, not going to happen, I don't know what to do, kind of like freak out, essentially. And so what we're saying is, number one, that's probably not even true. But number two, let's get back into your body and get back into the here and now.
But you know what? I don't want to be not clear about this. We have a tendency to, when we're under stress, to really get caught up in the stories of our insufficiency. And our mind wants to make them true. So we've got to be very vigilant, especially right now, that we not buy into any stories about insufficiency and realize and give ourselves some credit that it's just what we're in right now. It's just the energy that we're in. It's just this moment. There'll be other moments, and those are the kind of compassionate conversations we can have with ourselves where we're not so much reprimanding ourselves and wanting to be more and judging it and having shame for not being what it should be. Because all that stuff is just a trap.
Oh, totally. I went through an experience where I was, this will lead us into the conversation of suffering, because I was suffering emotionally. I had a hurt. I felt betrayed. It was a grief. It was it felt like an emotional, rip. And so I was really sad about this for quite a while. And I remember working through and healing through some of these things, because I knew I couldn't just stay angry and I couldn't just stay, in resentment or bitterness. And I felt that starting to grow. So I had to work towards forgiveness of another person and forgiveness of myself. But what happened was then I judged that emotion and I was like, I can't believe I feel this way.
I know.
I'm such a schmuck for feeling this way. Why do I let it bother me so much? It was this roller coaster.
Well, you know what's interesting about self-awareness is when we can see all those stories and not buy into any of them. Even the shame story. The shame was going to pop up every once in a while. We only suffer when we believe the shame story. But if you can allow it and allow the energy of that story to be expressed in your body without clinging to it in the story, it's going to flow. It's not going to stick with you. It doesn't have anything to stick to you with because there's no story there.
I'm going to say that again. I just wrote this down. We suffer when we believe the shame story.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily about changing the shame. It's about changing the belief or changing the story. Which one?
No, it's not about changing anything. It's about being aware.
Okay.
There is no story that's ever we're going to get escape from. We can't find a better story. A better story always has a sharp, dark side too. So the best thing to do is just let them all go. The less stories we believe, the freer we are. I know people say, well, how do I not have beliefs? Beliefs aren't necessary. They just aren't. It's okay to experience things and to feel things, but when you turn them into a story, you're then making your life smaller. You're writing a contract for this is the way things are or should be.
I was going to say it turns into should or should nots, which are rules for life that aren't necessarily true.
They're not true at all.
Yeah.
They're not true.
Bitterness, resentment, even self-guilt can be when we violate our own should, essentially. Exactly. And so we can let go of that too.
I suggest that your listeners be very vigilant in how they relate to themselves, especially in the shame and guilt category, because those things are toxic. And if a shame, guilt feeling comes up and you trigger it and start telling yourself things to believe about it, I promise you it's futile. It never takes you anywhere. There's no resolve. The mind is going to take it on and try to prove it. So the best thing to do is just find the space and let it go in love. And that's why I love the Ho'oponopono. It gives me a tool to take it into back into space.
Absolutely. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you.
That's it.
Amen.
Now, let me tell you what I do.
Tell me.
I developed a product about 10 years ago where I learned that if you can take the Ho'oponopono mantra into deep meditation, it can become your new self-talk. Most people's self-talk is very contentious. I'm wrong and I should be this and they should be that. But when you reprogram in your subconscious, in your deep meditative state, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. It shakes stuff up in your subconscious mind. So all of a sudden, you stop clinging to things so much and you allow thoughts to evolve and your perspective to evolve. I had a story of a cruel, relentless mother that didn't give me much nurturing. That was my story of my whole life. And the Ho'oponopono changed my whole perception of my mother and my relationship with her. So I really do, a lot of people are bearing foul relationships in their memories, in their perceptions. The Ho'oponopono loosens some of those old constructs up and allows you to see it a little differently, see it in love, see it in forgiveness, see it in gratitude. And that changes the relationship. It changes you.
Powerful, especially when you can do it deeply, when you do it in meditation, and then instead of trying to wrestle thoughts, you really create new neural pathways to have new self-talk so that it becomes more habitual.
And people who are exploring this practice, and there's lots of books and videos and stuff on Ho'oponopono, not as good as mine, but there are lots of books on it. When people are exploring it, they're going to come up to some resistance with please forgive me. They're going to resist that because it feels like there's something they've done that they have to bear. But continue using it. Continue, please forgive me. Because the reality is that you're not forgiving anything out there in the world. You're forgiving yourself for bearing it is true. And that's the power of please forgive me. I don't have to hold on to this. This doesn't have to be anything that I have to bear. Thank you. That's the way I really.
Powerful.
Yeah.
It's powerful. And it reminds me when I'm doing I'm like, all right, time to lose 10 pounds. My goal is not to resist brownies and have them in front of me and choose not to and have such strong discipline. My goal is to not want them anymore.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of this is where you're not like having that internal battle or struggle. It's truly changed on the inside and you really do feel healed and you're less triggered because of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell us about SoulTranSync.com, your website, your programs. How do you take what you've learned and work with other people?
I've done for 3 years. I've just canceled those recently. I had something called Monday meditation, where I'd have a group come, and they're usually about 25, 30 people, and we would meditate together. Then we would speak about love and self-acceptance. And I would show videos of some of my teachers that I felt that I would share with them. So that's kind of how that started. I got interested in the self-awareness track by exploring different readers and different voices on self-awareness. And I realized that the self-awareness track is a dual track. You know, I'm a non-dualist, but it's a dual track. There's a healing of the heart, which you talk about, and then there's the awareness of the truth. And when you're doing self-awareness work, you have to be working both tracks. You have to be healing your heart in love and self-acceptance, but you also have to be putting your attention on the truth of who you are and becoming very aware and do the I ams and do the inquiry, the questioning of who am I? Those are the things that are essential in growing in self-awareness or being what they call enlightened. So I teach in my practices the dual tracks of tools and resources on becoming free, open, happy, have more self-compassion, see yourself. And, you know, the big thing is, which I think the SoulTranSync practice does, is it really works on self-esteem. And we all have self-esteem issues. We think we don't, you know, even the ones that are very self-assured. But everybody has a little self-esteem they could explore and be and learn to be kinder to yourself.
How has the current change of the world impacted your business? Are you doing them in person? Are you doing online stuff? How are you running things now?
We've been doing a lot of Zoom events.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of phone events. I love people. Yeah. I do miss connecting with eyes. Yeah. But we're doing good work. And I'm realizing that the energetic dynamics are different on a Zoom meeting. Yeah. You have to pay attention to who's on the meeting. You have to be inclusive. You have to get people to feel comfortable on expressing themselves on a Zoom meeting. Where in a group, you know, people are always opening up with surprise awarenesses that they can share with each other. But you can still have that same kind of experience on a Zoom event. But it does require getting comfortable with the format, which I'm just getting comfortable with the format now.
Yeah. Well, we're really going through a collective trauma right now. No matter where you are in the world or how this has impacted you personally, I feel like we're all impacted in different ways and in different pieces or times. Some have kids and some don't, and some have to make decisions about work. And there's a lot of different factors or facets. But on some level, we all need this healing.
We do. There seems to be a lot of things to be afraid of right now, doesn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Seems to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I do tell people right now that it does appear as though that things are overwhelming and they're scary, but there's also a time for an opportunity. I think that we're going through a collective world reboot. Yeah. And I think there is a real opportunity for us to deal with our fears in this moment, in their awareness of maybe what the story we're telling ourselves, but also reimagine yourself right now. Reimagine things that you'd always put off trying to explore, or, you know, read different kinds of book or meet up with a different kind of friend. It's an opportunity to reboot ourselves in a whole new world that's coming in. And I think this is I think the world is giving us this moment to reboot. And I think we need to take it, and taking it is a missed opportunity.
Absolutely. We may, whether we realize it or not, have a pre-COVID life and a post-COVID life. And I've been talking to my friends, and we've been saying, like, we want to remember this time as a time we chose to enjoy time with our family. I mean, I was traveling once or twice a month, and that stopped, and my events got canceled and things. And so we're all pivoting at the same time. And so if it's a beautiful time to say, what do I really want? And what do I really want my life to look like? And do this digging like you're suggesting.
Well, you know what, if you stay in the story that this is not what I want, this is not the way it should be, this is not the way I want it to be, you're going to miss out on a whole new way of seeing things. So be aware of this resistance to COVID right now, this resistance to shutting things down a bit, this resistance to seeing the world in chaos and it feeling overwhelming. It's keeping us from seeing ourselves in a broader, more spacious way and connecting in our hearts in a broader and more spacious way. So, don't use this time as only resistance and only dealing with the problems of the world. Use it as an opportunity to see yourself in a new way.
Absolutely. We got 8 chickens and a puppy. As well. But I think you guys, at any time in your life, we all need some inner child work because we all have some wounded or not good enough, or, we've got some of the stuff that if we don't deal with is still there. But I think in this heightened awareness with more chaos around us, it's an even better time to heal through ourselves and come out better on the other side.
I agree.
You guys, you have to check out SoulTranSync.com. The links for his website and for the Instagram and Facebook page will be below. But I also know you have a book coming out. Tell us about that.
Yes, I have a book that took me 3 years to write because I think it was a cathartic experience. I was really healing things and just writing the book. So it took me a while to write it, but I'm so proud of it. The book integrates my story into my practice of SoulTranSync. And it talks about the tenets of SoulTranSync, which is awareness, forgiveness, acceptance, and gratitude. Those are the tenets of SoulTranSync. But the book ends with the practice of Ho'oponopono and how the practice of Ho'oponopono transformed my life. And I think you guys will get a lot out of just my story and reflect off of that in how I used the Ho'oponopono practice as a tool for changing the way I live my life completely.
Awesome. And so I know it is going to be released in January, but we can get on the pre-sale list now, or should we stay connected to your social media for when that's available?
Stay connected to my social media. We'll be announcing very soon the pre-sale, which we're going to be offering a bunch of deals on the book and some of my videos. And on my website, I have some phenomenal products. One is my inner child product. I've been told that my inner child product is one of the best they've ever experienced because it does take them to first contact with that innocent place, and then it starts a new dialogue, and it uses the Ho'oponopono as that new dialogue. But it's done with binaural and isochronic brainwave, so it takes you really deep. And the more you do this meditation, the more you're going to feel your heart opening up and connecting with yourself.
Awesome.
Check out all the products.
Yeah, check it all out. Go check it out. Let's come out of this season better than we started. And I absolutely know that is possible. So, Edward, first of all, thank you for asking yourself the hard questions, for doing the work yourself. I think that not only do you ripple effect within the people in your own inner circle, but you've also chosen to take what you've learned and what you've experienced and really create products and give it, impact the world with it. And the world needs it. The world needs healing. The world needs wholeness. The world needs happiness and joy and to live in a space of love versus a space of fear. So you guys check out his Facebook, Instagram, social media, all that stuff. Get on the pre-sale list for the book because this is something we all will benefit from. So thank you, Edward. It was great chatting.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you so much.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. I want to hear your aha moment from today's amazing episode. If you could leave a review at whatever podcast player you choose to listen from, Apple Podcast, Castbox, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening from, leave a review and share with us your favorite part of today's episode. Thanks for hanging out, and remember to dream big.